Evening, everybody. Welcome back to the center. Tonight, our special is Jockey, Boyce. Forrest, how are you this evening?
Good, thank you. How are you?
Oh, we're doing well. Chicago, kind of Seattle-ish weather around here today. A little gray, a little rainy, maybe like Buffalo, something like that. Outside of that, it's starting to get a little bit warmer. I have allergies, so the stuff's starting to grow in my face. I look like I'm crying. So if you see me crying and pawing at my eyes, it's not because I'm sad. It's because the weather around here is doing that to me. So wanted to ask you a quick question. When you were growing up, you got into horse racing. It wasn't really how you got started with horses. I read somewhere that you got started with showing horses and fox hunting. Tell us about that.
Yeah, no, I was fortunate. I grew up in a family where everyone rode. And so my grandfather had trained horses, and my father had galloped horses to put himself through college. And so when we were kids, we horse rode, we fox hunted, and we eventually made our way to the racetrack, which our parents didn't really want. But
the funny thing is, most of the time we talk to people who are in horse racing, it was some degenerate family member that brought them to the track, right? There's usually the uncle. What is it with uncles that they're always the degenerate that brings family to the track? But I guess that's going to be me at some point. But but it was about 11 years old, right, when you first started getting into riding horses and stuff like that. How did that come about?
No, actually, I was much younger. I was a little kid when I started riding, but I went and started galloping horses when I was 12 years old out at a farm for a guy named Mikey Smithick, and he really kind of shaped my riding career, I guess you would say.
So at that same time, you were breaking babies. Mm-hmm. So how does one break a baby horse? Tell us about what's like that process. You just jump on the back and see how long you can hold on, like a rodeo, or how does that work?
Like each day you do something a little different with them. Like you put the bridle on, you just mess with them. It's just like training a dog, really, right? You have to. I
haven't ridden my dog too much. Anytime I try to do that, she runs away. So. And then as you grew a little bit older, you knew at that point you wanted to be involved in horse racing. But as you mentioned, your folks were like, maybe not so much. So they sent you off to school where you went to school to be an artist. So do you still draw? And if you do, what sort of things do you draw?
I occasionally draw. Probably the last thing I actually painted was for my agent because he's into picking and stuff. And so he was trying to sell this piece of driftwood, and he needed something painted on it, so I did that for him. I don't do it a whole lot. I should probably do it more than I do. It's kind of gone to a waste.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. What did you paint for him?
Huh?
What did you paint on the driftwood?
It was a shorebird, because he was going down to Easton to the duck show and selling it at the duck show.
To Easton, Pennsylvania?
Easton, Maryland, right?
Oh, Easton, Maryland. All right, because there's a town. When I was a little kid, I lived in Easton, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And I went to school when Larry Holmes became the heavyweight champion of the world. Okay. And I really was a little bit different than all the other kids that I went to school with. And all those kids, they aspired to be Larry Holmes after he won the championship. It was really rough for us with all these kids who suddenly wanted to become boxers. But that was many, 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 many years ago. Shawn, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. And Forrest, speaking of the fox hunting, you have a horse, your number one horse, correct? 8 Too Fast to Catch?
Yeah.
Do you have that horse as your horse that goes fox hunting with you?
Yeah, that's correct? A really funny story because when he was at the racetrack, he was really difficult to ride. Not like bad. He was just really strong. Like, you had to have the outrider take you to the pole in order to breeze him because he was just so fast. And never in a million years did I think my whole family would be able to ride him. But we all hunt him. We love him. Like, he's probably one of the best box owners we've ever had.
Do you have any other horses that you used to ride at all?
Yeah, a little horse named Christmas Rush. I rode him at Colonial years ago. He was a cheap claimer, though. All of our horses that we have to fox hunt were free. They were kind of giveaways from the racetrack. So.
And then looking at your stats on Equibase too, you've eclipsed over 1,000 second place finishes, over 1,000 third place, and you're only 95 wins away from 1,000 career wins as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you've hit 2 milestones. You're going to hit the big one soon.
Yeah.
Uh,
Totally.
what would you say is your strength and what is your weakness as a rider?
Oh, that's a really good question. My strength is I get along with horses. My weakness is probably I don't make them do what they don't want to do. That's probably my weakness.
And what jockeys did you look up to when you came into the game?
It was more local people that I really respected, that I wasn't necessarily friends with, but I thought they rode really well. One of them being Kendrick Hermouch, Julian Pimentel, probably, and Mario Pino.
Besides Laurel and Pimlico, is there any other tracks you'll be running this year? You going to Colonial at all?
Yeah, I'll be going back to Colonial, and then, wherever the good horses run, I try to follow them around. So, I like to
Is there anything you like about each track more than the other?
There are a couple tracks that I prefer over others. When I was riding down Fairgrounds and I went out to Sam Houston, I really enjoyed their turf course. They had a really nice turf course. I personally think it's probably the best turf course I've ever ridden on. I like most of the tracks I ride at. There's still a couple that I don't particularly care to go to.
Do you like or dislike the real long stretch at Laurel?
I like it. I think
it
suits certain horses, and it's a nice change because it's the only place that has that. Like that mile second wire is a glorified sprint, so if you have a horse that doesn't really want to go the 2 turns, it's kind of a nice deal.
So you mentioned you might go over to Colonial Downs. How excited are you to hear that Churchill Downs is going to invest a lot of money in them and fatten up the purses?
I hope that's a good scenario. You never know when, places transition like that. There's always good and bad that comes from everything. And, time will tell how that all goes down.
Well, I mean, bigger purses have to be a positive for jockeys. Now, you had mentioned in another article that I read that if you didn't grow up to be a jockey or in the horse racing world, you had a different aspiration. She's like, oh, no, where's he going with this? But she wanted to be a spy. Why a spy?
I was a little kid. Yeah, all those spy movies. That's what I really wanted to be. I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. Like, I had no desire to be a jockey.
So which spy movies were the inspiring? Like Despicable Me or what other types?
Movies when I was a kid.
What's that?
I wanted to be like a lady James Bond. I just thought those movies were so cool when I was little.
Yeah, I think every kid probably grew up thinking that I want to be 007, right?
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun, for sure. All right, Shawn, so any other ideas that you have tonight?
Speaking of spies, since you're in the jockey's room and you're all talking and stuff like that, do you kind of spy on everybody's game plan and hear what you hear and game plan from there?
No, we don't talk about what our game plan is very often. You just kind of learn people's habits and you kind of just have to start thinking the way they think and then plan accordingly, right?
So how important is the program then, or that the program by past performances and how you decide to ride the race?
I always look at them. Like, I don't understand how people don't look at them. I take all that into consideration.
Do you watch replays at all?
Mm-hmm. All the time. Yeah, because that's all you have to go off of with horses, Like, first-time starters, you really have nothing to go off of, but you might as well use everything that's available to you.
Do you think, because as a handicapper, I look at it a lot of times, like if you're on a horse the first time compared to if you're on the horse the 5th time, I always give the advantage. Like, do you think it takes a race sometimes to get used to a horse?
Occasionally. I think they're far and few between. I feel like if you pay attention to the horse's past performances, it tells you enough that you should be able to ride that horse well first time you sit on it. But there is the odd horse where that isn't the case.
So what do you do, like, if you look at the past performances and this horse looks like he wants to go, and then the trainer comes up to you and says, okay, today I want to be patient. So last night, or whenever you go through the past performances, you've developed a game plan, and then the trainer comes to you and gives you a curveball and says, no, we're going to do something a little bit different today. How do you handle that?
I often give the trainer the benefit of the doubt the first time I ride their horse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're the one paying the bills and training it. They spend way more time with it than I do. So I always do what they ask first time. If I disagree with it, then second time I'll ride them the way I want to ride them.
Hmm. So the second time you ride him the way you want to ride him, if you win, do you come back and you're like, I did it. And if it doesn't win, do you kind of try to get away from him as fast as you can?
No, like I don't really say anything either way. Like the people who ride me, they know how I am at this point. Like, you know, I think it would be different if I was just starting out, but I've been doing it a while, and you know, people kind of know how I am.
So I have a question for you. Laurel is always one of those tracks that's kind of tricky for me. So when, I don't know why that is, but I have a difficult time handicapping there. So from your perspective as a jockey, am I looking for horses that should be on the inside, hugging the rail, horses that have early speed? What kind of horses do you find do the best there, so that folks who are trying to handicap the races maybe have a better chance of maybe cashing another ticket or two?
Here lately, it's been speed. Just the way the track's been playing, it doesn't matter if you're inside, outside right at the moment. You just need to be within 2 lengths of the lead. So if the horse doesn't have speed, you might as well toss it out right at the moment.
Speed, and more speed. Well, that's modern handicapping for sure.
It hasn't always been like that, but since they redid it, that's kind of the way it's been.
No, well, we'll keep that in mind going forward for any other future Laurel dates, Shawn. Well, we appreciate you coming in for us tonight. Hopefully it was a lot less painful than you thought it would be.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Alrighty, Shawn, another fun night, another great guest, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't really care for that long stretch as a bettor, but some of those tracks with the long stretch.
Let's kind of rewind that a little bit. You don't care for when your horse is on the lead.
Well, that's true, but oddly, usually it does. Even that, the lead horse usually holds on anyway, even though it seems like forever until that wire gets there.
I know that feeling when you're doing a handicapping contest and you're looking at your horse. The runway can be 1/8 of a mile.
Yeah,
it can be 8 steps, and it's far too long.
It doesn't need to be, Laurel. As soon as that horse that you have starts coming back to the field, it feels like 10 minutes.
Eternity, Shawn.
Yeah, and that horse looks a lot slower than what he is too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if you saw this today, Shawn. I know you did see this today. 2 tracks I never win at Parks and Laurel. Yeah, I do okay. Parks for me is streaky. Like I get super hot at Parks, or I can't hit anything. But Laurel and Tampa are like my kryptonite. You know what I mean? They're the ones that just, no matter what, I struggle there for sure. And that's a part of being a handicapper that you got to understand. There's some tracks you suck at, and stay away from them.
And I don't think those are too odd. I mean, you hear that a lot from a lot of handicappers, that those 2 specific tracks. So somebody must, I'm sure there are people out there that hammer them, but there's a lot that don't.
So I want to thank our friend, Claudia Sperato, for putting together something nice for us today. Shawn, you saw this, right?
Yes, I did.
So yeah, she got showing us her dogs, right? She's telling her dogs, how you guys doing today? I guess one's you and one's me. I don't know. She got a nice, beautiful hat from horse racing today. Yes, indeed. There you go.
Like, well,
even a dog wants to know what's going on there.
The dog wants their own.
Now, how good does that look, huh?
Absolutely.
Now, I do know a little bit of Spanish, Shawn, but I think what she's saying, if I keep translating correctly, is that Rich and Shawn are awesome, but my dogs are better, but the shirts are number 1. What do you think?
There we go. That works.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it was something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I want to thank her for putting that together. That was really kind of her. I appreciate it. Thank you, Claudia. We appreciate that 100%. You know what else is appreciated, Shawn? I'm sure being an executive at Churchill Downs Incorporated.
Yeah. I mean, this is everything going on and all the executives get more money, but doesn't that happen everywhere, right?
Churchill Downs executive team receives a 33% raise. You know what they were happy about? Closing Calder, closing Arlington, right? Selling those properties. So that brought in some money. And then they also transitioned away from iSports and from regular professional sports betting. And now they're going to focus solely on horse racing. The chief executive got a 33% raise, I think it said, and it was the smallest raise of the group.
Yeah, so they have less to do and they're making more money, and there's plenty of people below them that could use a lot of money. So, yeah, again, I don't know about this, but it's the real world.
It's a great. I mean, it's a great gig if you can get it right. I mean, a lot of that stuff is based upon shareholder value, the way the formulas work. I don't begrudge anybody for making a buck because let's be honest. We all want to be billionaires, man, right? If someone said, here's $1 billion, you're not going to be altruistic and turn it down out of principles. You're going to say, thank you, sir.
No, but there are those people that will say, okay, I don't need to make $1 billion, split that between the people that need more of the money. I'll take this. So
until they have $1 billion, then that all changes.
Well, yeah. And it depends how you, and it also depends how you got into the business, what age, if you were young and you've always had money, yeah, you're going to be like that.
No, that's not, I don't know. That's the case. I've known a lot of people that have done pretty well, that are very kind people. Takes money to make the world go round, unfortunately, Shawn. Meadowlands. So Terry and I have been doing these handicapping contests. Neither one of us have qualified yet. Jordan, I do a lot of financial market stuff, Shawn, and it's really not income that creates financial inequality. That's what, and then this is way off topic, but that's not really what creates it. What creates wealth inequality is the fact that people who have money are able to buy stuff. And then you have a Federal Reserve System that prints money galore. I encourage everybody just to Google the St. Louis money supply, M1 supply, and just look at that graph. So when you see how the money supply has increased, more money into the market for finite goods and services, because goods and services are not infinite. There are only so many cans of Gatorade. There are only so many iPhones. There are so many homes, only so much gold, only so many stocks on the planet. And when you increase the amount of money, it creates inflation. So if you own things and there's interest rates are at zero, which they have been since the crash of 2008, people with money can borrow money. They leverage that money to buy assets, and then the Federal Reserve is printing money like crazy, which creates inflation, makes the value of those assets go up. And everyday folks who pretty much everything they own is wrapped up in their house, it's impossible for them to keep up. So the real issue is the printing of the money. That's really what drives the wealth gap. And if they were to change that and actually reduce the money supply, that gap would close. And that's going to be my entire presidential campaign platform, Shawn. What do you think about that?
You never know what to expect on a Horse Center show. Now we got income inequality. We got it figured out. Rich, let us know.
I mean, it's just the Econ 101. It's basic stuff, Shawn. The Meadowlands. Anyway, what is not basic stuff, at least it hasn't been for Terry and I, is to win one of these damn contests, man. Handicapping inequality. I'm pissed. Let's try a little bit of, let the top 20 people in, forget the top 2. But in any case, if you're out in the New York area, I know when we have David Harrison on, he said that he went to the live contest, that he preferred those over the contest that you do online. So if you're out in New York and you're anywhere near the Meadowlands on March the 26th, $400 fee, 2 seats awarded. Why don't you head on over there and see if you can't get yourself a seat in Las Vegas? I know if I were there, I'd give it a shot. Hell, I might even think about driving out there, Shawn.
I was going to say, too bad you and Terry are a little far for that. I'm sure there's got to be ones that are closer to you that will pop up sooner than later.
Well, the only problem for me, Shawn, there's no track around.
I know, but even so, there's got to be something a little closer to Meadowlands. But yeah, if you're trying to qualify,
I think FanDuel is probably just an hour shorter. But anyway.
Oh, really?
And there ain't nothing to do around in Collinsville, Illinois, wherever that track is at. So I'd much rather go out to New York City. It's a lot more food out there. It's a great place.
I think if you're trying to qualify, I would probably do the live ones too. get the experience and everything else. So, yeah.
Now, I'm really disappointed about this next thing, Shawn. I'm really disappointed that we didn't get a phone call.
Indiana Grand.
Indiana Grand names paddock analyst at Horseshoe.
Horseshoe, Indianapolis. It's not Indiana Grand anymore. I forgot about that.
Yeah, but it's not that far from where I live in Chicago. I could probably drive there in a couple of hours. I was going to drop a joke right here, Shawn, but I don't know that if I don't know who I would offend if I had dropped the joke here. And I think you probably know where I'm going with this with a specific tweet, right?
Yeah. And
apparently he's not one of them, huh?
Probably not.
In any case, but I didn't even know this job existed. I did see that there was an opening for a position, but it was for the paddock announcer, this guy, and the as well as the race caller. And our friend John Dooley is going to come up from Fairgrounds and call the races at Indiana Grand since Arlington is closed. And I thought to myself, can I call races? So I was here trying to practice calling races. And let me tell you something, folks. That's an impossible task.
Yeah. And I don't know how they keep up with it and they do it so calmly. And if you get somebody that can't do it, like I've seen audition tapes or people that just practice it and put it on you, and it makes the whole race look different. Just the sound of it. Like it's all over the place. So yeah, give it to all the announcers that do it.
Yeah, Racing Rachel is still there, but my understanding is she's on maternity leave, having I think it was her second child, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but
it's just out of memory. I mean, I don't really keep track of her life.
She'll be back for this, but they have different roles.
Mm-hmm. The only thing I remember is her tweet that seemed to get horse racing rolled upside down. Horse racing Twitter was in it Twitter.
Yeah, quite Twitter.
Yes,
yeah.
And a lot of personalities within the sport going back and forth, right? I mean, I think there are some people who, when they get behind the keyboards, can be a little bit aggressive, right? Yes, no, Shawn? You're nodding in agreement. You're
yeah. I mean, that's no doubt, no lesson for that one. Definitely the good thing is the good thing today, like I put on what's the most overrated handicapping angle and stuff, and everybody had pretty much a peaceful, whether they agreed or disagreed. Most of the time, the horse racing.
So was there like a consensus from what you read as what's the overrated handicapping angle? What speed figures? Would that be it? Speed
figures was one of them. The big one that I left off of that I've been seeing is, does 3 pounds matter? Does 5 pounds? Weight doesn't matter. Some people are saying weight doesn't matter at all. But I would disagree with that. Weight does matter. It's a matter of.
Well, from what I've read about the weight is that every 5 pounds is a half a length. So if you're a half a length, so if you're now a half a length, if you're running 3 wide, you can be 10 pounds lighter and you're not going to make up a full length because you're running more than a length. But if you're on the inside and you got speed, then that half a length might be the nose at the wire versus getting beat by a little bit older horse that has a little bit more closing skill. So I don't think it's an overwhelmingly influencing factor, but I think it's one of those incremental things that, based upon which trip you get, could be a difference maker.
Yeah, and I forget who it was. I've seen so many tweets today, but I kind of agree. Run a mile, and then 2 days later, run a mile and carry 5 pounds or carry 10 pounds. Like your number's going to be different for sure. You're going to be slower. So
which horse runs 2 days later?
Well, okay, do it a week later.
I think that's a really bad analogy. I don't know any horse that runs two races one day and then takes a day.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you do it. Do it 2 weeks later, do it a month later, but carry 5 to 10 pounds and see what your number is.
It depends on what you're doing in the middle, right? I would think that if you're training in the middle, you're doing some weight training, 5 pounds, 10 pounds wouldn't make much of a difference. But if you're just sitting around getting fat, eating bonbons like Peg Bundy, then yeah, it probably would make a difference.
I think the overall thing is a lot of like somebody said, you might get the winner 20 to 30%. So most of the handicapping angles are wrong, but you gotta start somewhere and you gotta go somewhere. You know what I mean? So you gotta figure out which ones you like and which ones work for you.
So Terry says they would run the tracks every 2 or 3 days at tracks like Tillamook. So no coincidence that Tillamook is no longer a track that's open, huh?
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of
no horses left.
Horses did used to run like every week and stuff like that, but that's
pitchers used to pitch 9 innings, and LeBron James used to play full games back-to-back nights.
Yep, that's exactly where I was going to go. Like all that changed. So, and And horses used to, you don't see it much anymore. Horses used to run over 100 times too. You used to have that gritty horse that you get them every once in a while and everybody loves them, but it's very hard nowadays.
The one you like is the paddock pick, the one you dislike. So when you say that, Jordan, do you mean like when they're talking about the horse at the paddock where they say, oh, I like the way his ears are perked and that sort of thing, or just that the people who make the paddock picks usually suck? Which do you think it is?
I think we agree on, and this might be a little different than what he's saying, but that horse that's the talk all week in a big race, that might be an 8-1 or 10-1 morning line, and everybody's like, oh, that horse hardly ever wins.
Fires.
That's the horse that you just jump off of right away because he's gonna be bet down and it's not gonna win.
Exactly, but both. All right. So Shawn, question for you. What's your most overrated angle?
Oh, well, I've alluded to this before. It's the whole a horse finishes 8th or 9th, but hey, the first 2 horses in there were grade 1 winners. But the horse finished 30 lengths.
You're taking a shot at Tom right now?
No, the horse finished 30 lengths behind. I mean, does that mean if we were in a race and the horses that finished 1, 2, like I understand if you're close, and I'll even go one further. The next time out winners, same thing. So the horse in first one, it's next race. The horse in third one, it's next race. But the horse that you're betting on finished 7th or 8th in that race. Mm-hmm. How valuable is that when the horse didn't compete at all?
Class is everything, and maiden special weight to claiming is the golden angle. Speaking of golden angles, I was doing a little bit of work today because during our show, if you watched it this morning with Terry and I, Charles was giving me a little bit of the business about pace numbers. I don't know if you caught that.
I saw some of that. Yep.
So I'm like, I was trying to on the fly, trying to figure out how to respond. But so he motivated me today, Shawn. I'm like, all right, Charles, I'm going to put, you put me to the test. So I'm going to go out and look. So I went, since Terry and I are doing tomorrow, we're doing Gulfstream Park. I took a look at pace figures and I wanted to see. So I went back and looked at the last 100 or so races at Gulfstream Park and then looked at my rankings, the way I put together the pace figures. And I found out something kind of interesting that I didn't know before. So Charles, thank you. But the way I calculated them out, the 83% of the winners in that time span were either first, second, or third in their combined early pace or late pace ranking. So in other words, if the horse won, 83% of the time it was in the top 3 when I added the 2 furlong number and the late pace number, the way I calculated, which is a good number. In the ones that I missed, Shawn, some of them just didn't register at all. So there's really no way to account for those. But in the ones that I missed, if I then also included horses that had the fourth best early pace, late pace combination, and either had the top early pace number or the top late pace number, that number jumped from 83% to 87%, that the winner was in that group.
Wow.
This is just that Gulfstream because that's what we're doing tomorrow. So, of course, today I'll kind of factor that in a little bit more heavily for our picks tomorrow, and it'll come in at we'll be on the 13% side all day tomorrow.
I was going to say, though, that's always exciting to try something new like that. You think you might crack something, and sometimes you do a little bit. Sometimes
the only thing that gets cracked is your wallet.
Or your brain because you're banging your head up against the wall going, even that didn't work. But, yeah, I mean, if you can ever get the field down to 4 horses, if there's 10 horses in the field and you can limit it to 4, your chances of winning are way up there. So
they increase for sure. So that's something I want to thank Charles for motivating me to do today. So I went ahead and spent a lot of my afternoon. This is what I do, though, to try to get better at handicapping. For me, what do I think my most overrated handicapping angle is? I don't know that I can say there's any one of them that are overrated. I think, like you said, Shawn, that they're like baseball players, right? The good ones bat 300, which means they're wrong 70% of the time. So you have to go ahead and figure out the mosaic of all those 30 different ones and then the picture of the race and then how all that fits together. And based upon the picture of the race, which one fits in best in that race. So maybe in this particular case, speed figures is the best way to go because one horse has a clear speed advantage over the others. Maybe in some races, the best way to go is jockey trainer. To me, just from looking back at the data, which is what I spend a lot of time doing. And then, so I'll look at the race and then I'll highlight the winner. And then I'll look to see like which data points stood out over and over and over again. And the one, believe it or not, that stands out the least, and I'm not knocking anybody on this, but connections okay. The one that stands out the least is average winnings per race, which you would think would be pretty high, but it's one of the least. And then the next up is connections. So I've come to the conclusion that 90% of the race is horse.
See, I disagree with that one because how many times?
But
how many times?
What the data says, Sean? You can disagree all you want. I can back it up with data. You're backing it up with opinion.
How many times do you see a horse that's 3-1, 4-1, 7-2 because the horse looks good, but the trainer is a 5% trainer and the jockey is an 8% jockey? Those horses hardly ever win, but they get bet on form, but they hardly ever win. So that's where I would go. Connections do mean something. And also, you take a horse from a bad barn to a good barn, and that horse starts winning.
So, Jordan, from what I've read about buyer figures, what they basically do, they use Secretariat, I think, that race as the benchmark, which was I think that people figured that was the greatest race ever. And then from there, Delta Downs, if you're not close to the pace, you're dead. Yeah. Track specific angles. But so what they do then is they take the average race so they look at the times, the fractions at the times at the average race, because I was going to create our own speed figure. So they take the average time and then they calculate like where you are on that average. They use it to the benchmark, which is the Secretariat race. And then from that, they calculate out the speed figure. So I don't know what I think 130 is like the maximum speed figure you can get. And then from there, so somebody who scores a 90 would be a 90 on that scale of 130 based upon the time that Secretariat run for that class and at the track. So they take all of the 6 furlong races. They take all of those times, they create an average, and then from that average, they calculate out the speed figure based upon the Secretariat race. If that's probably the horrible explanation, but in a Cliff Notes version, that's how they do it from what I read. Plenty of winners on game horses for sure. All right, Sean. So that brings us from wire to wire today. Any final thoughts before we head out to Wednesday, our final day? I know your favorite day on this, right?
Yeah.
Does the class of the race factor into the number? I think
it
Jordan,
does.
No, I don't think it does factor
in.
No. Some people say that number factors into the Brisnet pace speed numbers. That's what we were talking about with Charles today. Mm-hmm. But I don't think in the buyer ranking, what they try to do is they try to make some, from what I understand, like track to track adjustments in the speed figure. But I don't think that's the case because a lot of times and we talk about this with folks who are on the show, like a horse that goes from Aqueduct to Parks actually gets a bump of like 3 or 4 points on the speed figure. So, and then the other way around when they're coming back home. So I don't think that's how that works.
I'll say another angle, and I don't know if it's really an angler, but you get those maiden horses that, in a maiden claiming or maiden special weight that run 15 times, never won, but it's gotten 6 seconds and 7/3 and is way over bet. Like that horse is, the horse is going to be there.
It's a horse that always hangs. That's what it does.
Yeah, but those kind of horses, when they face somebody that hasn't done anything, the 0-for-3 horses, they're still getting bet because they're going to be there. And those are the horses. And I know people don't like playing the maiden races sometimes, but that's how you make money because the wrong horses are usually bet in the maiden races.
Mm. But my understanding on that, Jordan, is that's how the buyer ratings are created. They take the fractions, they take like the final 6 furlong number, they create an average for the distance, and then for the class. So they create the par number, and then based upon that par, and then they use variance too to kind of bring those numbers back into line, or you can use the variance to bring those numbers back in line. And then they're all compared to that Secretariat race. And that's how they end up getting their scores. There's a lot of stuff. If you Google it, I think they have I know if you Google it, how to create your own buyer speed figures, it's out there. So it's not that difficult. The real problem is for me, because we were thinking about trying to create our own speed figures. But the real problem is going from track to track to track for me. So how does a horse at Santa Anita run? And then if he goes to Turf Paradise, or if a Turf Paradise goes to Santa Anita or Santa Anita to Churchill, all of that sort of around the different coasts. So that's the difficult part that I want an answer to. Andrew Byers, I guess. Sean, there you go.
We can try that. Yeah, absolutely. We'd definitely learn a lot there.
Well, then we would know absolutely for sure.
Yeah, we won't be able to beat it. We'll know. So tomorrow we have on Marcus Judy, jockey agent for 2 riders at Charlestown, Marshall Mendez.
So Terry brought something up today, Sean. I don't know this answer. Do you know? So is a jockey agent only allowed to have two jockeys?
No, because matter of fact, the guest tomorrow has 2, and then when G-Rod goes to Mountaineer, he'll have 3.
But is he going to have 3 at the same track?
No, you would have 2 at Charlestown and 1 at Mountaineer.
So, I mean, can they have more than 2 at one track?
I could find that answer out tonight, or we'll just ask him tomorrow.
I'll ask him tomorrow, yes. Terry brought that up this morning. I'd say, honestly, God, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know neither. I mean, and then that would go in the whole, and they finally did change that rule officially a few weeks ago with Katie McCarthy and Trevor McCarthy and the entry thing. But yeah, if you started getting 3 or 4 under the same agent, then you got
so there you go. Timothy Murray says you can only have 2 at a track, Sean.
Okay.
Terry Houghton says no. So no, you can only have 2 at one track, or you can have more than 2 at one track. And a bug. So you can have 2 in a
and
weight.
Marshall Mendez is
2 in a weight and 2 in a weight allowance.
Yeah. So
all right. Well, we learn something new every day, right? That's the great thing about this community is that we try to learn. So one of the things we learned today, speed figures, we can't calculate them, right? But the speed figures at the same time might be a little bit overrated. Sean, we've learned that since they changed the track surface because of that little hole at Laurel Park, that you want to have a horse that's first, second, or third, or you're toast. And that's about it, right? And that you can have 2 jockeys at one track and a bug rider.
Yeah, and we'll learn more about being an agent tomorrow, which will be exciting. And we learned a little bit last Thursday too with Paula Bacon. So always learning something. And thank everybody for the Twitter feedback today too. I love doing little things like that and getting it makes everybody, like we say all the time, it makes everybody better too. Whether you disagree with them or not, it's still food for thought later when certain situations come up.
You practicing your dance moves?
No, not yet.
Not yet. All right. Well, that takes us from wire to wire. Thursday, we're going to try to do Dubai. If we can't find a guest to help us with Dubai, maybe we'll change gears and do fairgrounds for the Louisiana Derby. And then if that's the case, then Tom and I will cover the Dubai stuff on our Foreign Fridays. Thank you. We appreciate that, William. Thanks. I also want to say thank you to John Caravu, Terry T.D. Houghton, and Mike Wallace for giving us the thumbs up, for liking us on Facebook. If you like what you saw, please subscribe on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can see the handle below scrolling on the screen. Same time over at YouTube. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up no matter where you are, because the more we get, ratioed as it's called, the higher up we'll go in the rankings, and we appreciate that. Thank you, Dustin. We appreciate that. Any final thoughts, Sean?
No, that's it. Thank you, guys, and we'll just keep bringing on the guests, keep learning some things, and be a big community and keep growing.
Yes, indeed. And Sean's going to reach out to Andy Byer. We'll see if we can get him on. That would be a fantastic show. We'd look forward to that. All right, Sean, everybody have a fantastic night. Terry and I will be back tomorrow at 12 o'clock Eastern. We'll be covering Gulfstream Park. Thursday, Oaklawn Park is running, which is unusual for Thursday. So Terry and I will step out and try our luck at Hot Springs, Arkansas. See if we can bring home some long shot winners at Oaklawn Park. If we don't do the Dubai World Cup on Thursday night, Tom and I will be back to discuss that. And if we do it, we don't do it, then we'll be doing the Louisiana Derby on Thursday. We're going to do it on the fly. And of course, if you have anybody you'd like to have us on the show, as was suggested by to bring in Andy Byer, let us know. We, as Jordan mentioned, if you have any suggestions or you know anybody that'd be a great guest, make sure you reach out directly to Sean or myself at GTS Rich B, and we'll do what we can do to bring them on.
Absolutely. Always open for whatever you guys want to do.
All right, Sean, thank you for your time this evening. Have a great night, everybody. Terry and I will see you tomorrow.